Hey, I'm Markia. Want to hear something scary?
The dead are writing. Love can conquer anything, even war. And two lovers who only wish to find a way to each other find themselves on a journey they thought they'd never take. This is a Nordic noir, a horror story of love. One cold evening, Agatha was walking home along a gravel road covered in snow and surrounded by trees. The moon was shining down, and a lamp gave her just enough light to see the road ahead. It was freezing cold, and she couldn't wait until she could get back to the warmth of her home. It had been a year since her fiancé Eric had gone missing in the war. His father had given up hope, and they came to terms that Eric was dead, and they'd never recover his body like so many other young men lost. On many nights like this one, walking from work to her abode, she felt as if a shadow was behind her, following in a horse-drawn sled. She'd often heard galloping and turned, hoping to see Eric, only to find no one there. She didn't want to give up, but days turned to weeks and weeks into months, and soon enough, it was winter. The war waged on, and she stopped receiving letters. So she moved on. But under the blood moon of this night, a year to the date that she'd said yes to his proposal, something felt different in the air. The galloping seemed to be getting closer, the sled just within view. Was it really him? She remembered their promise in the church graveyard where his mother had been buried. He'd sworn that when he got back, they'd be married and he would take her home. No matter what, he'd come for her. Nothing could stop his love for her, not even death. As she listened to the snow crunching under her feet, she became aware of another sound, a loud shushing and crunching that was getting closer. Soon, a sled came to view behind her. There was a black horse dragging the sled along, and she could see that there was only one person in the sled. When the sled stopped next to her, she realized the driver was her fiancé. Agatha greeted him and climbed up on the sled. She was overjoyed that he had come home. Eric was unusually quiet, but she didn't mind. She was just glad to have him back. For a long time, there was no sound except for the snow crunching under the hooves of the horse and the skids of the sled, until the young man finally broke the silence.
The moon is shining, the dead are riding. Are you not afraid, my love?
He said. When we're together, what do I have to fear? Agatha responded as she hugged him. The moon on his face made his features seem gaunt and skeletal as they passed lanterns. Was it the light playing tricks on her? All was silent once again. She thought the question was odd, and her fiancé was unusually quiet. The dark night was enough to fill anyone with dread, and she figured that he was just scared. Shell-shocked, they called it, from the war. But there was an emptiness in his gaze. He looked only ahead.
Do you remember your promise?
He said. Agatha wondered why he wouldn't turn to her when speaking to her. Eric, is it really you? She asked, getting a little unnerved. All her attempts at conversation were met with no reply besides his strange, trance-like response.
I told you not even death could stop me from coming back to you.
Agatha was starting to get afraid, but she pushed it aside. Where are we going? She asked. The young man did not react to her words, only looking forward at the road ahead. She could only barely see her surroundings in the silver glow of the moon. From beside her, she heard her fiancé muttering,
As am I now, so you will be.
Tired of his cryptic words, Agatha snapped. What do you mean? You can't just show up and not answer my questions or tell me where you've been or where you're taking me. Suddenly, the sled came to a stop. She looked around, trying to figure out her surroundings.
A church, to be married,
he said as her eyes adjusted, realizing where she was. She recognized the place as the town's churchyard, the place they had made their pact. As he walked off, she followed. Her thoughts, however, were interrupted by her realization that his military coat was ripped, seeping red. all over his back and dripping blood on the snow. Suddenly, he stopped in front of an open grave and took her hand under the moonlight. She looked down. His fingers were bones.
I have kept my promise. I have come to take you home, my love.
Eric said as he finally turned fully towards her.
And you will keep yours.
The moonlight revealed that half of his face was ripped away, exposing his bloody skull. He stalked towards the dark hole in the ground, gripping her hand tightly. Agata screamed as he pulled her close. It was a kiss of death. His touch ice cold as a shock ran through her system. Her veins froze all throughout her body and face, turning her lips blue as she took her last breath. Carrying his love, the dead man dropped into the grave. In the morning, Agata was found dead. She was buried in the snow in the open pit her fiancé's family had made for Eric's body in the family plot. His father had received his body in confirmation of his death the evening before. He was going to tell Agata the news in the morning, but Eric's body had gone missing overnight. To everyone's shock, they found them together in the snow. Their bodies laid to rest. Finally, home.